Today I'm going to talk about printmaking, and printmaking for me is a really exciting process in the whole world of art. It's been around for hundreds of years and has gone through an amazing array of different sorts of mediums and ways of actually making prints. In the 1500s, 1600s, there was a lot of dry point etching. That's where the artist makes the mark on a copper plate and then it goes through a process of being printed with a master printmaker through to the lithography, which became really prominent in the 1700s, and then on into the 20th century with the rise of things like screen prints, collagraphs, and since the advent of computers, the rise of digital prints, Gclay prints. Now the thing about printmaking, which a lot of people don't completely understand, is that it is a really collectible medium in its own right, and a lot of artists down through the ages have made it a really big part of their career. Albert Dürer in the early 1500s, very famous for his printmaking. Artists like Turner and Claude Lorraine used a lot of printmaking by ways of creating a multiplicity of their more famous paintings, and also incidentally a way of actually proving that paintings were real. All this before photography. And that's one of the key things to remember too about printmaking. It was a way for artists to create multiple images of their more famous works by their own hand. Rembrandt was another great artist who got heavily involved in printmaking. Now, in the 20th century, it became a really big thing. Andy Warhol and his screen prints, you would probably know of the Marilyn prints, and certainly if you haven't seen them, get out and have a look at them, because they are really the epitome of pop art, and that idea that the image can be multiple and incredibly bright and vibrant. And now we see major artists, even of the likes of David Hockney, working on iPads and producing works that are directly printed and in their own right artworks. Now, prints are an excellent way of getting involved in building your collection, not only just from a pure aesthetic point of view, but also if you have a particular hankering for an artist and that artist may be out of your price range, it can be a really affordable way of getting involved with an artist. But there are certain things to think about, and you need to understand the different mediums and also the different level of the hand of the artist involved in the printmaking process. So behind me I've got 4 different sorts of prints which have been created over the years. We've got a work by Adam Cullen here. Then there's a Gclay or digital print by Jim Thalassoudis. We also have a hand-worked etching by James Drinkwater. And on the end, we have an etching which was created by the great Western Desert painter, Wenja Napljari. Now, just to go through this, and I think probably the best way of explaining certain things about printmaking is to delve into the elements of these works. But before I do that, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the things to be careful and to think about when you are collecting and buying prints. The first thing, a collectible print usually is an edition. Now that edition is numbered and usually on the left-hand side. So in the case of Jim Thalassoudis, this is an edition of 10. It means there are 10 impressions. This particular work here by Adam Cullen is an edition of 50, and those numbers appear there and they're in pencil. Often you'll see the title in the middle and then the signature and the year on the right-hand side. The reason they're in pencil is so that you can see that the artist had an involvement in them. And this is something to think about when you are looking at, say, prints of deceased artists like Picasso. Sometimes you'll see the artist is signed in the plate. Now that is quite different from a work that's been done in the presence of the artist. So some of those Picasso prints were actually printed after the artist's death, and they have a different value to the ones that were hand-signed to start with. So without further ado, let's get involved with the eccentricities of each sorts of prints. Now, as I said, there are many different styles and methods of making prints, but this particular one is a really interesting way of making a print, and it's called a collograph print. And that means that the printmaker builds a surface up and also pushes the ink into the paper as well. So this particular work is multiple blocks. It's a little bit like a woodblock print, and all the different colours meant that it was put through the press, and then the colours are built up much in the same way as you find with a screen print. Now, the reason it works so well with someone like Adam Cullen is there was an absolute rambunctiousness about the way he would make his paintings and grips and all that sort of thing. So the surface of this print, to accentuate that or to replicate the feel of his paintings, Adam actually worked with a whole lot of medium like glue, and he created all these drip marks as well, and it gave a real feeling and a sense of vitality to the print. And this particular work's called Derby. One of his interests, of course, was horse racing, amongst other things, including Ned Kelly. The edition, as I mentioned earlier, it's 50, and that means that there were only 50 of these works done, and super exciting and dynamic and vibrant with all the different coloration through the work. Moving on, we've got Jim Thalassoutis. Jim is the most extraordinary technical painter, and his particular oeuvre, if you like, is neon. Not working with neon, but painting it. So he's gone all around the world and found neon signs and then meticulously and carefully photographed them, and then through his process of colour has created a luminosity and, as I said, a sort of vitality in his work. So this particular work is what we call a Gclay print. So he's created the painting, and then he's taken a high-res image of that and printed it out with archival prints. And when you look through this work, there is an extraordinary array of tone. So each red has a gradation there. Now, the original painting reflects that as well, but I think even in the print that he's created here, it has its own sensibility and own popness about it. It is an edition of 10. That's all there are, and the integrity of the artwork is also placed in with the artist as well. So, and this is a similar sort of medium that you find, as I mentioned earlier, about artists like David Hockney, who are using this medium to really great effect. And in the words of Hockney, he's saying, well, the result is so fantastic, why do I need to go to another process? So this has become very much where printmaking is now. Some people think a little less of it because the hand of the artist is not, or the printmaker is not created in it, but priced appropriately, and I think it's a very interesting result. Remember, this is about aesthetics as well, and a work like this framed up will create a great sensation in any environment. So these two works are both etchings, but there are some variations in them. The first work is a work titled Grass Trees 5 by Newcastle-based artist James Drinkwater. Now, these plates were created out in the West Macdonald Ranges on an expedition he did out there, and he drew directly on the plates, and then the plates were taken back to Melbourne, printed, and then brought back to him in Newcastle, where he started reworking the plates. So each etching that is here is its own unique image, and you'll see on the top there a white painting, a motif, and this is the grass trees that exist out in that country, which are quite impressive and beautiful. And then each particular etching in this suite has its own eccentricities. His own marks have been made over the top of them. So the hand of the artist is all over this particular suite of etchings, and each one is unique in its own way. Wenja Napljari actually created this etching one morning with me, and it speaks very much of her country and the iconography that she deals with, the two water holes and the travelling line between. It's an incredibly delicate print, and it was a very special morning when she created it. We were at a place called the Cleland Hills, which is a long way in the Western Desert, and for me it's a really beautiful image and speaks so much of the country as well. So each of the dark marks here that were made were with a brush, and then she was using a toothpick to create this dotting across there. The coloration is what we call aquatint, and that was created by the hand of the printmaker in the studio in Sydney. You'll see also the addition here and her mark there as well, and then the printmaker's chop. And that allows, all of those things allow a provenance back, and you can see that this is an authentic and real artwork in its own right. That is quite different from a reproduction, which is a print, a poster, and these are the things that you need to be a little bit careful of when you're looking online at printmaking, and certainly at auction and what have you. Is it a real print? Does it have the mark of the printmaker? Is it signed? Is it signed in pencil? And how big is the edition? In Australia, we like smaller editions. Overseas, with artists such as, say, Banksy, for instance, edition sizes can be upwards of 250 and still be incredibly expensive and incredibly collectible. So I hope that gives you a little bit more information about the nature of printmaking. It is an expansive and super interesting way of collecting, and a great way to begin collecting art. At Nanda Hobbs, we think so highly of prints. We've been involved in the process of commissioning prints and working with artists for well over a decade. We've also been interested in the history of this medium. So this year we decided to start a standalone print website called NH Prints, and on that site you can go in and you can find available prints, and with full provenance and all the things that I would expect you to look for, with a range of artists from around the world. It's something that's worth keeping in touch with, because as new editions come along we will post them up there as well. So that's nhprints.com.au. You can stay in touch via Instagram, or indeed subscribe to the website.